been world
Oh, no, it's necessary.
And it's taking care of yourself.
Yes, it
also,
is.
for
It is.
sure. I remember a story where there are two angels, and they're watching something happen. And this man actually apparently had gotten robbed. So the robber is running through the park. He's got this brown bag of money, puts it underneath the bench. The police are in hot pursuit. So he drops the bag and he takes off. Well, this unsuspecting passerby comes over, sits on the bench, notices the bag full of money, lifts it up, looks in there, goes like, and he's looking around to see if anyone's noticing him, and he takes off with it.
Right.
So the young angel asks the older angel, why is that fair? What about the man that just got robbed? This guy brought this bag. This man picks up the bag, walks off with this other guy's money. And the angel says, oh no, my son, the man that found the money was robbed in a previous lifetime from the man who had the money originally and got robbed.
Right.
This man was just returning it to him.
Returning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's karma.
Exactly.
We don't know what happens in previous lifetimes. We just know we're here, learning lessons.
Right.
And it could be something that you're doing payback.
It can. And I often think of that if something's happening and I go, wow, that person just cut me off. Well, maybe I cut them off. Then I
know.
literally go, okay, are we even? We good now? Let's just cut this right now. All right, we're at Control-Alt-Delete. Let's get neutral. Because
Totally.
really, you could also get caught up in that. I have a woman who found out from somebody, she believes that her current husband was her son in a past life, and that she was
Totally.
mean to him then, so now she's putting up with him and da-da-da-da. So she basically lets him kind of walk all over her in this marriage.
Oh, no.
Because she knows from this, medium that she walked all over him as his mother.
Oh.
So she thinks she deserves it now. So sometimes learning these, if you call it
Insights.
past lives or insights or whatever, can prevent you from actually moving forward. And that is, and I'm sure you get this too, in your line of work, Jorianne, people call you up. They can't even go to the grocery store without calling you up.
Yeah.
They depend on you too much. They don't let life play itself out. And I think that I was going through that when I was first discovering people like you, and my dad had just died. I couldn't get enough. I was like a medium and psychic junkie.
There you go.
Anybody, I was like on the phone. And in fact, I did a video about this the other day on my YouTube channel about how I just couldn't find a key. I couldn't find my key anywhere. And so I was going to call you. I was going to call every psychic and say, where the heck is my key? Because I remember you found Jonathan Brandmeier's keys during one of our things, and he had
I have
lost a set
found
of
millions of dollars and diamonds for people, yes.
keys. Okay, you find lost stuff.
Yep.
And I'm like, Jorianne can help me find this. But then I thought, wait a minute. I'm going to build up my intuition. So I put on
Yes.
this meditation. It's a type of medication or a meditation where it's binaural beat is basically the style where it's like one tone in one side and a tone in the
Hemisync,
other.
yep.
Yeah, a hemisync, and it connects the sides of the brain. So I put on a hemisync and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, where are my keys? Where's my key? Where's my key? Where's my key? And I wake up and I see a picture of my passenger seat in my car. I'm like, aha!
Was it there?
Run out there, look around, can't find it anywhere. I'm like, come on, where is it? Where is it? I took a deep breath again, pictured my pineal gland turning on, the whole thing, right? Third eye, beep. See that again, I'm like, it has to be here. I tore that car up, and sure enough, between the seat and the console
Yes.
was the key.
Beautiful.
It was there.
Beautiful.
So I didn't need to call you. And I think that's the problem is but people forget we do have an inner GPS that we can turn on every once in a while.
Totally. I wanna correct you on something.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
So people can call me, but I also, when I'm working with people,
Yes.
I really make it a point to say, you don't want to call me on a
Sure.
regular basis. Some
course.
people call me, when they need to. But I, like you, feel very, very strong. I do psychic development classes, so
Oh,
I
I know
teach
you
people how to
teach,
get
you
in.
teach,
Yep.
yes, mhm.
And I want everyone to learn how to be in connection with their higher force, their higher connection, their higher self, their connection with God, whatever we call the universal creator.
Yes.
And to me, that's also very important because
Yes.
it's becoming self-reliant is so important.
And you're also
Yeah.
very good about putting up boundaries with those clients that are, I know the really good, and I always say this, the reputable psychics
Mm-hmm.
and mediums will not take somebody's call every single week.
Right,
You
right.
will encourage them to find the answers within, get quiet, meditate, get calm. Because when we are whirling dervishes, we aren't going to hear the advice anyway.
You know what it is? It
yeah.
goes back to that saying, are you going to cook the man the fish dinner or teach him how to fish?
Yeah.
and it goes to that. And I teach people how to fish, and
Yeah.
I know you do too. And I think that's
Yeah.
really significant for what you've been doing. How many years have you been involved with this spiritual quest that you're on?
Well, it was 19 years ago when my father passed away.
Okay.
So I would say almost 20 years.
So I want to say sometimes I have used the term walking dead. I just have, because there are a lot of people that aren't aware. And I think by really getting in touch with your higher spiritual self, learning how to meditate, learning how to pray, and some people say, I don't hear answers. Well, you really have to let the spirits know that you're serious about this and that you really want to be in contact with God, your spirit guides, angels. What do you tell people? Like, you're doing this, do you meditate every day, Jen? I mean,
Well,
what-
I'm a really terrible meditator.
Okay.
Which is why I like that style that we were talking about, the hemi-sync, because it's
Yes.
not guiding you through anything. You just plop it in your ears and it just goes.
Yes,
And
yes.
sometimes I will knock out and fall asleep and then wake back up and I feel like I've had 8 cups of coffee.
Beautiful,
So
yeah.
it's kind of nice. But I also think that people can get answers in the shower.
Yeah.
When they're on the lake path walking or going for a run or whatever it might be. People who work out sometimes say they get, downloads, that's when they're most creative. They
Totally.
get their ideas. So I just encourage people to do things where they can tune out.
Yeah.
And tune in. That's what it is. It's like just forget, get that to-do list out of your brain and just kind of get busy and or get quiet. Or
Totally.
just don't judge yourself if you try to meditate and you're like, I keep thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
Then stop meditating and go load the dishwasher.
do what works for you.
Yeah, you
Yes.
never know I feel like intuition is, and it's been described as that bird that flies across your car. It's like,
Yes.
oh, and it comes out of nowhere. It's not something you're planning on, and that could happen when you're folding laundry or when you're in deep meditative state. So some people are better at it than others. I tell you, just find what works for you.
Yeah.
No judgment.
You were talking about finding lost items. So I was born and raised Catholic, and I'm very eclectic now, but I still have Catholic roots, okay?
So St. Anthony, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Dear St.
Well-
Anthony, please come around. Something's lost that can't be found.
Yeah, so it's got, so the prayer is, Tony, look
Tony,
around.
look around.
Something's lost and it must be found now, Tony. So I teach that prayer all the time.
Oh, that's great.
And many times what you were talking about is we have, right now we're fully awake, and like I see you, I see the camera, the table, I hear sounds, all this other stuff. And you want to get away from that ego state. You want to get away from that consciousness and go into this really altered state of relaxation. In that space, you see your mind screen, like that's what we were describing a moment ago.
Right.
And that's where we start pulling up so much information. And I think that takes a lot of practice for some people because their head is so noisy that really teaching themselves maybe some self-hypnosis, for you, the hemi-sync tapes, things like that. So many different ways of getting inside.
And you can go through phases too.
Yeah.
I remember there was certain healers. I used to just listen to certain spiritual music, and it would
Yeah.
get me there. The other day, I said to my sound device, I asked for a certain artist, and then that music went on a loop, and I thought, wow, I forgot how much this relaxes me.
Wow.
So it's nice to have your go-to, but then I also think, especially now with what's going on with this pandemic, surrounding yourself with people that are of like mind. I think that we're really being encouraged right now to do a complete revamp of the people that are in our inner circle.
Totally.
And that we feel obligated to keep people there who don't really fit where we are.
Yeah.
And it's okay to move on.
Yeah.
Even if it's blood. I mean, honestly, some people feel so obligated to be with family only because they are blood.
Yeah.
But if they're really toxic, you have to make a choice. And that's, I think, for some people, the hardest thing. I get a lot of emails about that. People saying, I just don't know what to do about this family member or that family member. And I say, well, you have to lead by example. And if you're a parent and you're saying it's okay to be codependent
Yeah.
and make excuses for bad behavior and invite those people into your home,
Yeah.
that's what you're teaching them, and then they'll teach their kids, and then it'll just keep going and going and
Yeah.
going. So boundaries, again, a big thing for me at this stage of my life, and I think especially in this pandemic era, it's
Yeah.
important to feel good about the people that you let in
Totally.
to your 6 feet.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I tell people when they come to me and they're asking about relationship problems, things like that, and if they're going to get a divorce, water seeks its own level. So when you get into a relationship, you guys are basically here, you're at the same level, everything is going great, and suddenly you're growing, and they grow a little. Then you're growing, and they don't grow, or maybe they go back, and this is where you're stuck now. And this is why you don't see eye to eye, together anymore. Either you guys can work on it, maybe you can fix it, maybe you can't.
Right.
But if you guys are no longer synchronized and they're going in a different path and you're going down a different path, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to let go. It's okay to find something new. That's perfect.
Yeah, just because a relationship failed doesn't make you a failure.
Totally.
I say that a lot to people, especially because I've been through a divorce, and I wrote about that in my third book. And I say your divorce is not does not define you as a parent, as a person. Relationships do, I hate to say this, contracts expire.
Yes.
And if you're not bringing out the best in each other, you
Yeah.
have to be realistic about that, and it's
Yeah.
okay to move forward.
But here, I think the biggest thing for me when I think about these things, Jen, I look back at every single situation that I've gone through, and I always have to put the question out there, what did I learn from this? Because every situation, I saw an email years ago, it says we're all together for a season, a reason, or a lifetime.
Yeah.
And if it's a season, it's very quick.
Yep.
It's a time period. A reason could just be you and I met. Nice to meet you. Thank you. It's like, aha, I got that. Something hit me. And then a lifetime from birth until death.
Yep.
So, you want to take a look at these things, and then you really want to ask yourself, if you have this idea that something's supposed to work out, and it didn't, you've got unmet expectations. So you might suffer over that.
Yeah.
But you want to look at what were you hoping was going to work out, and if it didn't work out with that person, you can still have something else happening with somebody else.
Right.
Don't stop, keep moving forward.
Right.
But
It goes back to what we were talking about with God and the GPS.
Totally.
They have a much better view, and this is, again, back to Dr. Mary Neal.
I've got a different thing to share about that. But go ahead, that's perfect.
Dr. Mary Neal, the woman who was dead for 30 minutes I was talking
Yes.
about earlier, she said that when she was dead in heaven, she could see that we were like an oriental rug, like this beautiful pattern of light and dark.
Yes.
But way up there, it's gorgeous.
Yes.
Down here, it's like, I'm getting stepped on, this stinks, bleh. But we take everything so personally, but she could see it all from above and see how we are all woven together, and no matter what we think of the neighbor across the street, we are woven together and connected, and some is light and some is dark, but it's all needed,
So when you said they're up above, they see things differently, I teach people about their spirit guides and angels. It took me a long time to really sit here and go like, oh, that's who this is. That's the extra voice I'm hearing in my head.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is, they're like in a helicopter above you, hovering, watching you. And if I'm on 94 and they say, Jorianne, take I-55 home, and I'm going like, dude, really, that's taking me way out of my way. Jorianne, take I-55 home. I listen and I obey, you betcha. Because then, minutes later, I'm hearing a big crash, the expressway is closed off. They literally are hovering above us, showing us, telling us, go here, go there, do this, do that, to avoid certain things. I completely believe that. Or I've got the best spirit guides, they bring me to stores.
Well, it's funny you say that. I encourage people to do the same thing. Like when you're getting in the car, I surround it with light. I surround it with angels. I just
Totally.
made a road trip from St. Louis, and I put angels on either bumper. My
That's
son
right.
is literally in the car like, what are you doing? I'm like, hold on. Doing my
That's right.
People, it's like people, they pray before they eat. They pray before bed. It's a ceremony.
Totally.
And so I feel like every time you go to do something, whether it's going into a store or driving for an errand, you have to be conscious about it, and you get in and you say, okay, please get me there safely. My intent is to go here,
Yes.
accomplish this, and then come back.
Yes.
And if we just keep going on autopilot, that's when random chaos can happen.
Totally. No,
Yeah.
it's perfectly well put. So I want to slip back to the thing about some karma or us having hurt feelings, things like that. One of the things that I find most important, even though we don't understand some of the things that happen, I use some really weird analogies, but there's something that, the analogy I've used was, say a man's walking down the street, and you remember him, and you go, hey, and suddenly, say, he flips you the bird. You're going like, whoa, why did he do that? Oh my God, how dare he? Now you've created something in your mind. I'm hurt, I'm offended. Now, did you step up to the plate and walk over and say, hey, Bob, why'd you do that? Had you done that, Bob had an enemy that was walking behind you that you didn't see, and that's what the interaction was, but you assumed it was something. There are so many different times, Jen, that I've seen where people have assumed something, made up something about it, did not get it cleared, and they're walking away with all these hurt feelings.
Yep.
And so we end up, and if you remember Scrooge, the
Oh,
Christmas story,
sure. Yeah.
all the stuff that he carried with him almost until his death, thank God the angels came in and were giving him some insights.
Yeah.
I think we're all the same way. If we do not get something cleared up, we walk away. Some people become bitter, they become angry. They're not at peace, they're not in the state of love.
Yeah.
What is your thought on forgiveness?
Well, I think you brought up one of my favorite books, which is The Four Agreements, which is, and a couple of them are don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Right? And literally, always do your best, be impeccable with your word, and never assume. Okay.
Yes.
So here's the thing. If we're making assumptions, that means we're going, down the conclusion
Ass out of you and
lane.
me.
Yeah, exactly. An ass out of you and me. We're going down conclusion lane with varied particles of evidence. Okay.
Yeah.
I always say, like, as a reporter, my background is journalism, and so, you really don't know the truth unless you were there. You're gathering evidence, but now, how much evidence do we have, right?
Yeah.
So, like you said, the person flips you off, and you're like, what the? If you aren't plotting someone's demise actively, or thinking awful thoughts, or gossiping, that's the impeccable with your word agreement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you're gossiping about somebody, chances are they heard about it, then they're mad at you. They kind of have a right to be.
That's right.
But if you are not doing any of those things, you're acting in integrity, you've got good character, you're not plotting anyone's demise, and you're not talking bad about anybody, you're doing your due diligence, right?
Yeah.
It's not about you.
Yeah.
And I tell people then you're not taking it personally, because literally that means you remind them of something that they have not yet healed.
Totally.
And that happens in friendships and in relationships and at work or whatever. I used to
Yep.
see somebody at work that was so fearless, and they would go out and she would do this and she would do that, and I would get so triggered by it, and I realized it was because I had fears.
Yes.
And she reminded me of the fears I had, not yet healed. So
Yes.
anybody that aggravates you and you haven't, like, you don't know, you're like, oh, what's that about? It's because they remind you of something you have not yet healed.
That is
So when it
correct.
comes to forgiveness, I really try to not take it personally unless I was plotting their demise at some point. And then if that's the case, I will hop to it and say, you know what, in 87, you really upset me.
That's
and
right.
I was really mad for like 2 years and I'm not anymore. So I hope we can mend fences and,
Totally.
move on from there and just start fresh. I've got some people in my life I'm actually not speaking to at the moment, and it's because of dishonesty.
Yeah.
I have a real high standard for honesty. I absolutely will not tolerate lies. I
Yeah.
just won't.
Yeah.
And you can't be in my inner circle if you're a liar. It's just a rule,
I'm exactly the same way.
yeah, if
Yep.
somebody breaks that rule, I just have a no tolerance. It's like, ugh. And they've come back like, oh, I'm so sorry, but, and I realize they only did it out of fear. That's the only way somebody lies, is because they're afraid.
Totally.
But I just still can keep that boundary up and say, still don't want you over for Thanksgiving. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's okay, I think, to hold your circle to standards, and if they don't meet those standards, then but they have a right then to try to come back and say, hey, I'm doing better now, and I'd really like to try this again. Can we try this again? I'm all for it.
Yeah.
As long as they're copping to it. Accountability, Jorianne, is such a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Like, if they do lie, at least admit to it. It's
Yeah.
like, I did it. I'm sorry. I was so scared. I was
Yeah.
scared you'd be mad. I was scared you'd judge me. I was scared of this. But I get it, and I won't do it again. Forgiven.
Perfect.
Let's start over.
Perfect. I want to go one step more with the forgiveness thing. Do you remember the Ho'oponopono prayer?
Of course. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that. And I think the thing about some people that they don't think about forgiveness is the fact that, let's go back to that analogy about that man flipping you off.
Right.
First off, he wasn't flipping you off, number one. Secondly, we carry all the emotional pain. So when we're going down the line and we're still carrying this pain, do you remember 20 years ago, right? When such and such happened? They don't remember. You never told them. They might have said something. They might have looked weird, and you just took it on. You made something, like you said.
Yep.
We assumed something. And so guess who that forgiveness normally is really for? It's normally really for you.
Yep.
Because you're carrying this burden.
Right.
And again, once again, unless you can really check it out with that person and say, hey, 20 years ago, when you said this or that, now let's just try to bring this more into reality. If something happens in the moment and you say, you had the weirdest look on your face a moment ago, did you mean? Or 2 days ago you said, hopefully people will actually come back and say 2 days ago.
Right.
But what courage does it take for people to really come up and say, I saw something you did or said,
Right.
A lot of people don't do that.
No, they
you
don't.
know?
They don't get the clarity. And that's what I talk about with the accountability piece.
Yeah.
Be your own advocate. If something's really bothering you and you want an answer on something, then go find out. Be your own little investigative reporter, and then you can check the box.
Totally.
And be done with it. And chances are they're going to be like, wait, I did what?
Yeah.
I was so late. I was in a rush. I didn't mean to be short with you in the hall. I'm so sorry.
Totally.
And then it's just forgiven. You know, I write about this in my third book. This Isn't the Life I Ordered. I have this section about forgiveness because my grandfather, my dad's dad, he actually started Channel 26 here in Chicago, Weigel Broadcasting.
How great is that?
Yeah, in the 60s. He was a very creative guy. Not a great businessman, but super duper creative.
Yeah.
And so he got out of the business very bitter, and it was like he stayed in a farm in Wisconsin and was just crabby until the bitter end.
Yeah.
And he got so much joy out of pinning different family members against each other. It was like a sport that he couldn't wait for, right? And so I was driving, and my son was in the back, and I was thinking about Grandpa, and Grandpa had already passed, and every time I thought of him, I would get a stomachache. I would get enraged, and I would get furious. This guy's been dead since, I don't know, 2002, and I was still holding on to it. And I thought, who's suffering here? Not him.
Totally.
He's somewhere else. I thought, I wonder what would happen if I could let this go and send love instead of hate and resentment. So I started picturing just bright light going from my heart to his face.
Yes.
You know, I'm driving down this highway in Wisconsin, and I'm doing this whole exercise. My son has no idea. He's in the back on his iPad. And I'm doing this whole exercise, and in that moment, Jorianne, we looked up in the sunroof, and there were 41 broad-winged hawks. Now, I know 41 because we had to pull give you better than you is really what that underbelly is. I'm better than you. And it's like, no. Real true forgiveness is like, okay, let's try this again. That's what it is. It's really a start over. Like it's a do-over. Okay, let's do it again. Let's try again. And you know my boundaries and you know my expectations and do your best. It goes back to the 4 agreements. Always do your best, you know. Put your best foot forward and sometimes your best is just getting out of bed. I mean, let's be realistic. Not everybody's best is getting an A+ on the test or running 7 miles. You might just be able to walk to the corner and back with the dog. That's okay. That's okay too.
Yeah. I think, you know, the word live or being alive, there's a lot there. And, you know, when you look at your spirituality, like you said, people, sometimes that is the best they can do. I believe that the body is a completely, how can I say it? It's like a self-cleaning oven, so to speak. They say the body replenishes itself every 7 years. So if you do have an ailment, is there a possibility that you can still stay alive and still be alive?
Right.
And how does that work for you? You've studied a lot of healers. Have you seen any miracles where people are on death's door and then they're popping back and it's like, oh my God?
Yeah, I have. And then I also see like my dad who had a brain tumor and he died of it a year later. And he went to the healing center and he went to the healers and he got Reiki and he got all these modalities and it didn't work. And I thought, well, why did it not work for him? But it works for this person who goes to one healer and it's like,
question.
Boom. And
Good
then
question.
I realized it's their journey.
Totally.
And I don't know what their karma is. And I don't know what they signed up for. You know, I know one of the things that a lot of the people who've died and love to talk about it tell me is that we make our curriculum. It's like we're filling out our college syllabus, right?
Yes.
And we have these branch points of when we can exit. And sometimes we take the branch point and sometimes we extend our college and get the PhD and the MFA and we keep going. And sometimes we check out. And why do we choose it? I have no idea, but it's their journey and it's their choice. And so I try to respect that, but I also feel frustrated sometimes when people I love are checked out or taken out or whatever it might be, and that other people who don't even care for their life are living to be 98, 99, 100, and you're going, seriously? Like, do we really need that person for another decade? Sorry, that was really unspiritual, but I mean, there are so many people doing wonderful things and they get taken young, you know? So I don't know what that answer looks like.
And we don't know what it is.
We don't, but we know that it's there for a purpose. And it's their journey.
And I think totally their journey. Let go, let God. That's what I tell people a lot. You've got these expectations. I've seen people when they said they say that there's 5 different points in which anyone can leave, and that's, you know, baby, like birth, baby, young child, teenager, adult, elderly. So these are the points in which people have exit points. And we don't know why. If somebody's leaving, I just know that it's at that point their spirit made the decision, whether it looked like it or not. Their spirit said, I'm complete, and it's okay for me to go. And the hard part is when you see a baby die. And you go like, wait a minute, they didn't even have a life. But karmically, if God said, you know what, you're going to be able to get born, and that completes your entire mission, now you're going to be completely one with God again, or whatever people's beliefs are around that. If that was all they were supposed to do, then that really is all that they were supposed to do. And in that, we all have lessons around other people staying and going. It's really
true.
Interesting.
And then if you're suffering and you're in pain and you see people suffering, you see them have hurts. You know, we talked about the healing piece. Why are they suffering? Why are they, you know, why does one person come for a Reiki healing from you and then their joint pain is completely gone, right? And then another person goes once a week and they're still struggling to walk and they've got issues. And I see that all the time too. I mean, I have a healer that I know that comes to town once a month. She's a shamanic healer. She does a complete, unbelievable Control-Alt-Delete on people. And I have seen dozens of people just sail. And 2, I think, out of the 50 that she's seen fight it and are like, that was the worst experience. And I'm like, well, then you're not ready.
I was just going to say, I ask people, are you ready to let this go? You know, this is what I'm saying. Are you ready to let it go? And if they say no, then it's like, okay, let's look at that. Is there something else you still need to know about that or still need to learn from that? So that's perfect.
Or even what Carolyn Mace calls woundology. People get a lot of mileage out of being in pain. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
how many people do you see on Facebook like, pray for me, my neck hurts today? And it's like, I get it, but
Yeah.
they're milking their wounds for the
Yes.
attention that they feel they don't have.
Yes.
You know, now there's nothing better than a heartfelt prayer if somebody is really in the hospital. It's like, oh my gosh, please pray for Jimmy. He got, you know, in this terrible accident. I'm not saying, I'm discounting that.
Yeah.
But we all know what I'm talking about with
Yeah.
the person that's always got this happening, or an ankle problem, or a broken wrist, or whatever it is. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And that is what Carolyn Mace calls woundology, where
Yeah.
they live by their wounds and it's made up their identity.
Totally, totally. Some people wouldn't know what to do or who to be without that.
Right.
And so they really have to learn who they are again, how valuable they are, and what else they can create in their life, and then they can let that go. And some people need that at the time.
Right.
So it's like, okay, it's always good to be, like I said, a self-cleaning oven. It's really good to look at, you know, hopefully try to find out what your purpose is here.
Yeah.
You know, what makes you happy, what makes your heart sing, that sort of thing.
Right. And that's what I think is most important for people to understand with their career. It's like, how do you feel when you do this?
Yeah.
You know, do you feel empowered? Do you feel excited? Does time fly and you don't realize, oh my God, it's the end of the day? That
Totally.
is really your, you know, sacred contract, as Carolyn talks about, Carolyn Mace, one of her books. And
Yeah.
it is your sacred contract. Your sacred contract is what, you know, and it's not about your ego, like, oh, I should be a TV star, or I should be this. You know, it could just be doing QuickBooks. You can be really good at numbers. That's a gift. That's a contract, and it's unbelievable. If that's easy for you, then by all means, whatever comes with ease and brings you joy is your sacred contract.
Yeah. What are you passionate about?
Right.
I also know that there's this thing called latent talents and abilities. So people are searching and searching for something to do. I don't think I found it. This is not what I really want to do. And then all of a sudden, they are going like, maybe they're 50 years old, and suddenly they're like, oh my God, I so love this. Then they find what they're supposed to be doing.
Interesting.
So it's never too late. It's never too late.
Oh, no, it's never too late to shift gears. You know, if you suddenly
Yeah.
find yourself really good at painting in your 50s or whatever it is. I know somebody who did that. She started painting murals, and I'm like, wait,
Did she?
where did this come from? And she's like, I don't know, COVID. You know, a lot of
there
people
you go.
discovered they have these amazing talents they never thought they had the time to do. So, again, we
Yes.
were talking about that victim mentality, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people do go there, and I get it, because we are restricted from doing what we want to do when we want to do it.
Yeah.
As a society, we are very entitled in that way. But when you are forced to sit with yourself and your family and your dog and your dishes and your laundry and all the other things that you're forced to deal with,
Yeah.
you find that you have other skills that now you have the time to learn and master.
There you go.
So
Latent
make
talents
the
and
best
abilities.
of it.
Do you remember the woman who was, she was the, oh God, person for Burger King. Where's the beef?
Oh, that was Wendy's. Where's
Oh,
the beef?
Wendy's,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. 85 years old.
Oh my
85
gosh.
years
Wow,
old, and
sure.
suddenly she's a star.
Yeah, right.
At the end of her
exactly.
life. That was amazing.
That was.
I love following those stories.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So would you say, Jen, what would be the most important thing that you would want to tell people? What could they do? What should they do to really get a hold of what they want to do passionately in life?
I think every day waking up with the intention of saying, how can I serve? And then show me what help me learn something new. I really think that we could all learn something new every single day. Really. And it doesn't have to be like how to fix a door. You know, it doesn't have to be anything, even if it's just information. Like when I was learning about Phil Jackson's journey, like learn something about somebody else or something about history. You know, with all the conflicts that have been going on, I learned so much recently about Christopher Columbus and who he was. You know, it's like, well, why is there so much upset? Well, let's do some research. And then I find myself on a rabbit hole about Andrew Jackson, who's on our $20 bill, and what a criminal he was. It's like, oh my goodness. And so just, I think, expanding your mind, because when you do that, you're just learning more information to get more knowledge, because knowledge is power. The worst thing we can do is just go with the flow of somebody else's opinion without understanding what the information is that's leading to that opinion. Because I think a lot of us are, you know, tuning on the news, and I was in the news business, and I know
Yes.
it's all highlights, right? And it
Yeah.
is summaries, and every news story is shortened, and it's sound bites, and it's edited by somebody's intention with their projections.
Yes.
So the best thing that you can do in this era of all of this too much information is to dig and dig and dig. And the best way to dig is to learn about our history. And I mean, really learn. Don't just like go with what the mainstream blah, blah, blah is saying. I mean, I think the BBC and PBS are two resources that have documentaries that I found myself watching during this COVID era. I mean,
Totally.
I learned so much about Ulysses S. Grant. There's a wonderful 3-part series that was on the History Channel.
Okay.
And I just, thought, like everybody thought, he was that drunk guy that has a house in Galena. I mean, I know he was a president and stuff, and he was good at war, but that's about all I knew. So I watched this 3-part series. Now I know so much more. I have such respect for him. I went and got his memoirs, and written in his words.
Yeah.
Words are important,
Yes, they are.
and they last forever.
Yeah.
And people now have forgotten the power of the written word.
Yeah.
And we are losing our grammar, and we're losing our ability to type and write, and handwriting, forget it. I mean, that's just a lost art.
Yeah.
But these people used to take the quill pen and dip it in ink and write for hours and hours and hours, and that is a skill that is being lost. So I just think that we need to remember the power of the written word.
Yeah, yeah. And your word also, what have you got but your word?
Right. Being impeccable with your word. It goes back to one of the 4 agreements.
Yeah.
It is a powerful thing to be honest and to communicate clearly. Communication is everything. And like we talked about, people making assumptions when you're not communicating. I'm president on a board right now, and the board has been very fractured because the previous president wasn't communicating with all the players.
Right.
He was sort of like isolated. I'll tell this person this, I'll tell. And I'm all about transparency. I'm like, okay, let's CC everybody so that everybody knows what's happening, and then we, boom. So when you're really transparent and you're communicating, that's when you feel empowered.
Yeah, and the word empowered, I think that's what everyone's looking for, honestly.
Right, because fear is the opposite of empowerment, right?
Yeah.
And we all feel afraid because we don't know what's happening next, where we're going next,
Yeah.
when this will be over, it'll be over, what'll happen, when it's over, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So knowledge is power in the sense that you can at least know within your 4 walls,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
happening.
So, I want to say when you imagine a crystal, okay, and all the different facets of the crystal or the diamond, right?
Right,
That there's no rights, there's no wrongs. We're all independent, we're all individuals. We all have, I stop and think about how many people are on the planet, and I think about my life and all the different ideas and my needs and my desires, my loves, things like that. And then there's you, and then there's him, then there's her. And then there's all of the city of Chicago. Then there's all of Illinois, all of Indiana, the whole United States. You multiply this, and each and every one of us are going back to God.
right,
Each and every one of us will return back home.
right.
And it just looks like this gigantic, huge prism, this crystal.
Right.
And the fun part is they say the closer to the light you are, the closer to God you are, or the closer to awareness you are, right? And the further away, and I think that's where the fear is at. That's where the loss that people experience.
Is that our cue?
Yeah.
Okay.